Hey everyone, welcome back to Digging Deeper, the podcast where we explore the stories of ancient civilizations and buried truths of the past. I'm Lindsay, and today we are going to discuss something a little different. Not the ruins themselves, but rather about the rules surrounding the way we uncover them.
That's right, and today we are joined by two researchers, Rowan and Caden, who are here to talk about how the ethics and values of archaeology have changed over the years at Gnosis Crete.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Now, before we get started, would you do us the honor of giving a little bit of background knowledge to our listeners about the Gnosis Creek site?
Yes, of course. Knossos is one of the most iconic archaeological sites in the world. It is just south of modern-day Heracleon on the island of Crete, Greece. Back in the day, as early as 7000 BCE, it was the most important city of the Minoan civilization, and it was discovered, the guy who was credited for it, was a British archaeologist by the name of Sir Arthur Evans. There's a bunch more interesting information, but we can get to that later.
Thank you for that extensive background. I'm sure our listeners greatly appreciate it. Now let's get into this discussion because Lindsay and I are fascinated with Gnosis and the degree at which archaeological ethics have changed from the past to today. Let's get started with how proper ethics have been used at Gnosis over the years. You talked about Sir Arthur Evans as the one credited with the discovery. Was he truly the first one to excavate it? Could you help us with that, Caden?
Absolutely. Knossos as a site, over time, has had both proper and improper ethics. Sir Arthur Evans was actually not the first to discover the site. He just received all the credit. A man named Minos Kallikrinios, a scholar from Crete, was the one who first discovered it. He took field notes and inventoried his finds, but at the same time he was looting Knossos, taking a bunch of artifacts that are now unaccounted for in various places around the world. Sir Arthur Evans, of course, is an English aristocrat, and he used a more systemic approach, which was easier for the existing institution to digest. It was common practice for archaeologists at the time to sell some of the antiquities they excavated while in the field, and that didn't really change until the last couple decades. And another reason why Minos probably didn't receive credit was that it wasn't really acceptable for people to study cultures related to their own until Zora Neale Hurston's work with African Americans in the South in the 60s.
Oh wow, Sir Arthur Evans stole the spotlight then. Talking about proper ethics still, how are we implementing this in a more modern times?
Yeah, we could talk about more modern times. From the 1990s to present day, archaeologists have used collaborative research, non-invasive technology, and community engagement. The projects for Knossos are now conducted with the Greek authorities. Foreign teams hoping to research and publicize work about the site have to obtain permits in coordination with Greek archaeologists. Non-invasive technology has been implemented to mitigate damage to the site and its context. Things such as 3D scanning, photogrammetry, and multispectral imaging allow us to conduct research and take samples while allowing archaeologists in the future to study using better technology. Lastly, community engagement, ethical archaeology is advancing and involving museums and educators, and tourism for these places is managed so there isn't too much.
Wow, that's really fascinating. However, I'm inclined to ask, was there anything unethical that happened at Gnosis? I'm very curious since I heard that there was a situation related to Germany during World War II.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Third Reich was absolutely editing the archaeological agendas by making them sound like they were actually supporting the socialist cause. Not only that, but they were allowing people not actually trained as archaeologists to go out into the field, because if they allowed professionals to go out and discover what was up, then they would have seen and knew that they were actually wrong about the agendas they were pushing out. Being that they were pushing these agendas and not actually hiring professional archaeologists, many illegal things happened, such as illicitly exiting the Tholos tomb and part of the neighboring Minoan settlement without proper authority or supervision from the Greeks of the land.
That is fascinating. It is truly amazing how history overlaps during certain periods. We appreciate having you with us on the podcast today. However, before we let you go, I want to ask about the future of archaeological ethics. What can we learn from the past and bring with us to the future?
So when we're talking about ethics, we have to understand how far we've come. In over a century, we've moved from a focus on acquiring antiquities for profit and for putting them on display to making sure that we put preservation first and collaboration with Indigenous folks in the conservation of their land and artifacts. With the history of looting and unethical practices at sites like Knossos, it is more important than ever that we as archaeologists stay on the right path to continue thinking critically about the outcomes of our actions and ethics. The past is a treasure trove of incredible stories and history, and if we want to maintain these amazing records and artifacts, it's principal to make sure that we responsibly preserve and study the past while respecting land and culture.
I completely agree. Thank you so much for shedding light on the ethicality of archaeology today. And I am sure that the world would benefit from education surrounding ethical practices. Once again, Rowan and Caden, thank you guys so much for joining us today on the Digging Deeper podcast. Listeners out there, stay curious.